And what we have to do is get through the, we talk about surviving in the Arctic, and this is not quite the Arctic, but it's kind of close. But the point is we can't just survive. We've got to be able to thrive and operate. And so the more we can practice this environment, the better we're going to be if we get called to do that. So hopefully we learn all the hard lessons here, or most of them. We share them with everybody so that when they get into this environment, or if they get called into this environment, they're hopefully at a more of a jog and not at a walk.
Well, General Hokanson, thanks so much for sitting down with us. I wanted to ask, first of all, about what you saw today, what looked good, what some of the feedback was that you got, and also what some of the recommendations you bring up to the Joint Staff about what you saw today.
What we saw today is our guardsmen realizing that, the Arctic is an important environment, and we need to take every opportunity to really train environments we may not be exposed to all the time, just to remember we can operate in that, and then also to reacquaint ourselves with things that we have learned in the past, or in some cases we have to relearn. So if you look at the M777 artillery that they had today, I was talking to the crews about what they've learned in that environment, the cold, and frankly how our soldiers operate. And this is the 4th year for that unit. They continue to get better at what they're doing. And he said if the temperature is much colder, they found other things. And this year it was certainly cold, but not as cold as it had been previously.
What does the next step look like from something like this to a larger exercise farther north, or with a bigger unit, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so if you go back 3 years ago when I was the director of the Army Guard, we realigned the Guard divisions. Previously, our division headquarters and brigades were separate organizations. So we aligned them for training, really for large-scale combat operations. And the unit we saw today was a great example. They first came with a company. Next year, they came with a company and a detachment. The second year, they came with 2 companies. This year, they came with the entire battalion. And so what we're trying to do is build beyond platoon and company level readiness to where we build eventually, years from now, to where we are doing division level exercises. When I was a brigade commander, I spent a lot of time with our artillery battery because it was so much fun. Great organization, they love to shoot, and get to do some awesome stuff.
And is a camp like that work? Does a National Guard training center like that work for that, or is that something you would go to one of the joint national training centers?
So we look at Camp Grayling. It is in a huge training area. In fact, that is an area where you could actually operate a division at. Some of our training are just not that large. But then again, we have to build in those local training areas the individual, the crew, the platoon, and the company level readiness to get to where you saw the team today. You always see a map of the United States and we're in the center and it kind of has a globe around it. If you look at a map from the North Pole, you see how close all these countries are, and you also see the vastness of the Arctic. And as we look at the temperatures increasing and further access to the Arctic, some of these areas that we almost thought, well, nobody would operate in there because they're so difficult. Now we're starting to see countries move into those areas, and there will be competition there. And you see China, you see Russia, and then you see some of our NATO allies like Norway that operate there. And we've got to be able to go wherever that potential fight may be. Or if we need to provide presence there, we need to be able to go there, and not just go there and survive, but go there, operate, and thrive.
So yeah, there's a lot of good training here. To integrate with the air.
Right.
So it really helps our fires. We get multiple.
You also talked to and learned a little bit about the Latvians who are at Camp Grayling right now. What does the future of that partnership look like? And what does it look like with other Baltic countries or European countries, Eastern European countries?
So I was fortunate last year in June, I actually visited all the Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And obviously, there's an immediate presence there because they border Russia, both Estonia, Latvia, and then Lithuania through Kaliningrad. And so they live this day to day. They've lived this for generations. And in many cases, the threat is more present to them. and you see the urgency and their support for Ukraine, but then also the focus on, hey, we need to be prepared if something happens along our border. And it's, in a way, a sense of urgency. And then also for us, we've gone back since the war in Ukraine started and met with our Baltic state partners and said, look, based on the current environment, would you like to change your training plans? And we've made some adaptations in that case.
It's a massive privilege and a huge honour to serve my country. The body achieves what the mind believes. I love to test myself and challenge myself constantly. If the call was to ever come to go to war, it is my responsibility and my duty to serve in the armed forces, be it in peacetime or at wartime.
What are you guys learning that's different here? Things that you're going to take if we ever operate in such an environment, or even colder than this?
So you've mentioned that you want the Guard to get more training opportunities like this, and that this is sort of preparing, for the big show. Is this leading up to any more integrated with active duty exercises, something that might even happen even farther north than this?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, when you look at our National Training Center rotations, we work very closely with the active component, and frankly, our units have to be interchangeable on the battlefield. So we'll train here as guardsmen, but we deploy with active duty and we operate side by side with them. We have the same standards, same level of training. At the end of the day, the reason the Guard exists is to fight and win our nation's wars, and so we've got to be able to do that. And that's what we're doing today. We're out here building readiness.
Do you think some of those more integrated exercises, is that a 2023 thing, 2024? What does that look like?
So we've actually been doing this for decades, working very closely with the active component at the National Training Center, Combat Training Center in Louisiana as well. But when you look at our deployments over the last 2 decades, and even now, our folks are down there side by side in combat zones, working with their active duty counterparts. Because at the end of the day, they all say U.S. Army, and when we're mobilized, we all do the same thing. We work together.
So yeah, there's a lot of good training here. Integrate with the air. Right. So it really helps our fighters. We get multiple.
And the understanding is that these exercises build toward what may be a confrontation with Russia, China, as the Arctic becomes a little more navigable. Is there any sort of rejiggering or rethinking of that strategy now, having seen the Russian military's performance in Ukraine, that maybe China is there a place to shift more toward what a Chinese confrontation would look like versus a Russian confrontation? And do you back off Russia at all because of what we've seen?
So I would say, Megan, we're trained for whatever environment we may be in, and we can never predict the future. But at the end of the day, we've got to be able to defend our country. And whatever environment that is, we've got to be prepared for that. We always say we train how we fight, and we find out if we train in the most difficult environments there are, anything short of that we're going to be fine in. And that's what you see out here. Now, it is cold, it's not super cold, but at the end of the day, we're learning a lot of great lessons, and our soldiers are out here training, and they can operate in this environment. So it gives them the confidence, no matter where they go, they're going to be able to do their job.
Mm-hmm. Hey, are we out of primers? Hurry up! Stop! Fire! 19, he's been in right there, fine! They're fine. They're fine. Fuck, clear!
And National Guard troops have been over in Ukraine, now spending more time over in Germany training Ukrainian troops, but there are also Latvian troops that are here in Michigan training with these guys. What does that look like?
So this is really highlights our state partnership program. So Michigan and Latvia are state partners for almost 30 years now. And what we do is we take that opportunity to train with them as well. In fact, they've reached some of the highest level of training. And any opportunity we can to work with them, another NATO ally, train together, it just helps build those relationships and make us both better.
And are there plans to do this sort of thing over in Latvia with them eventually?
So it'll depend on the training area. I know that we've got units that are over there from the United States working with them already, and any opportunity we can, we absolutely take that, and we go over there and train with them or train with them here.
Stand by! Fire!